Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I work at a translation office. Our job is basically to translate official documents, work certificates, academic degrees, medical papers, and so on to be used in other countries. The whole service is controlled and monitored by the judiciary, and we are basically under their direct supervision. My boss had to be directly certified by the court. Some countries also require our translation to be double certified by the local court and/or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's pretty routine work most of the time, but since these are official documents, there are a lot of rules we have to follow. Like what documents can be issued at official translation and how much we are allowed to charge, down to the smallest pennies. My boss is usually a super cool guy and does all he can to help people who come in, sometimes even refusing pay from people who can't afford it, even though he still has to pay the tax for the income since it gets registered in the system. Now, this is actually something my boss did. I fully agreed with him, but it wasn't my call to make. Last week, some guy, let's call him Mr. X, came in and brought us a bunch of documents to translate, including work certificates, his academic diploma, and transcript of his grades, and some other stuff. He brought them in 2 batches, so by the time we received the second set of documents, his first set was already translated and double certified by the court and Ministry of Foreign Affairs. His grade transcripts were in the first batch, and his diploma was in a second batch. This will be important later. At first, he refused to give us his diploma, saying that his mother had hidden the documents to prevent him from traveling abroad. Not the strangest thing we have ever heard, so whatever. But we kindly inform him that we are not allowed to issue a translation of copies and have to at least see the original document. So does the court and the ministry. So he goes and gets it a couple of days later. Now I was the one in charge of his translations, and the moment I picked up his diploma, something felt off. It was too heavy. I actually had to check several times to make sure it wasn't 2 or 3 documents stuck together. A closer examination showed that a post stamp attached to the back was not real, but instead a copy. Strange. I called my boss since now I was sure this is a forgery. He comes, checks the document, but it's really strange. These documents have forgery prevention measures like holograms, UV light-sensitive prints and seals, and most of them are in order except the stamp in the back and the fact that the photocopy looks strange. At this point, I just suggested calling the cops and let them deal with it. But my boss, the good guy that he is, didn't want to get the guy in trouble and said he wasn't 100% sure, more like 90%. So he had someone bring it to the court to check, but instructed that person to be discreet, get their opinion, and get out with the document, not leave it there as evidence. So they did just that within the hour. The document was back in our hands, with a suggestion from a court official that we probably should treat it as a forgery. Hearing that, my boss decided to get the fake diploma for the guy and send him away, as long as he brings us the translation we issued for his grade transcripts, which was for the same course as the diploma was also probably fake. He even offered to pay back the money he paid. Just get the translation to us, get your things, and go be a criminal somewhere else. Pretty lenient if you ask me, but it's his business, not mine. The next day, we get a call from a local court asking us why we are refusing to send the document belonging to Mr. X to the court to be certified. Turns out, the guy had gone to court and filed a complaint against us because we refused to do his work. So now my boss is pissed and does just as Mr. X wanted, sends the forged diploma to the court. They of course immediately can tell it's a forgery. They seize it, opened an investigation against Mr. X, and now he's on the hook for multiple crimes, some of them with serious jail time. The court also asked us to give them the serial number for all the documents ever translated under this guy's name. Everything, including ID documents, work certificates, everything, so that they can contact all embassies and warn them about the possibility of forgery, which probably means that the guy will be blacklisted in every country that matters. My boss made some excuse at first about not having all the serial numbers ready, but then Mr. X came in on Monday with his father and issued some strange threats. So the next workday, all the serial numbers were at court. We also didn't have to pay his money back. And to think, had he just done as asked, he wouldn't be on the hook for so many crimes, and he would also receive a full refund. I would still call the police personally, but I have to admit, this was more entertaining. Before I start this story, you should know the duty of men in my country. I'm a 19-year-old who just graduated high school, and since joining the military is required, I decided to go as early as I could. I enlisted and finished my training. This story happened when I reached the rank of corporal. I got a special vacation and was on a train to visit my parents when the entitled kid pulled on my shirt. I looked back and a kid about 7 or 8 years old was looking back at me. Before I could say anything, the entitled mother, who is a total Karen, came up to me and said, "Hi, my kid wants your beret. Can you please give it to him?" I was confused, so I just answered, "Sorry, if I give my beret, it will be against the dress policy of a soldier in vacation." And without hesitation, the Karen shouted, "You are a soldier. It's your duty to give your beret." I was getting mad, and I saw the people that were staring at us. So I calmly said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I am currently a soldier, and I have to stick to my rules." Thinking she's winning, she literally shouted at me again, "The military runs on my taxes, which means you have to listen to what I say." She then tried to grab my beret and I stepped back. This lady then said that if I don't give my beret, she'll call the MB, the military police. I said, "Go ahead." And she actually did. After 10 minutes, a group of MP came into the train and asked what happened. You won't believe what Karen said. "These men are trying to kidnap my son." Confused, I said, "That is not true." The MP then turned and said, "OP, what are you doing here?" There was pure confusion on Karen's face when she heard them say my name casually. I saluted and shouted, "Corporal OP. I'm on my promotion vacation, Lieutenant." That's right, when I said I enlisted in the MP as well. That lieutenant was my platoon leader. I explained the situation, and the lieutenant looked at Karen with disgust. The lieutenant explained to Karen that she is a jerk in a kind way. The Karen was even more mad now, and she started to shout, "No, he tried to kidnap my child. He's a monster." With nothing to say anymore, I tried to end it, but straight out of nowhere, she slapped me. The anger showed on my lieutenant's face, and he then ordered me to arrest her. With no hesitation, I pinned her to the ground and arrested her. She kept on screaming, "You can't do this! I pay for you guys!" I said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I can't disobey my commanding officer. Also, you are arrested for assaulting a soldier and false accusation." The woman was handed to the police and the prosecutor and got 1 month in prison. The story happened about 15 years ago. The cast: OP, me, female 5'11", Bob, friend store manager, the chief, my boss, entitled jerk who lost his car. Okay, background: I worked as a firefighter as an investigator for an independent department. For information, an investigator was a rank of lieutenant. I was based out of a large station. 2 engines, 1 newer 110-tower ladder truck, relative later, 1 chief car, and 1 utility truck. Every day the food duties changed from firefighter to firefighter. My chief's turn to cook when this happened. My friend Bob worked as a GM of a small grocery store. There was a long empty space in front of the store marked with the following sign: "Emergency vehicles only. Enter the entitled jerk." He had a nice looking BMW and always parked in the above spot every week. Bob told the entitled jerk that he couldn't park there.
"I can park wherever I want. I make more in a day than you make in a week."
My friend calls me complaining about this entitled jerk. I agreed to go and watch the spot. I got into our utility truck, which had the department decals on the door and a single red light on the dash. I park in the emergency vehicles only spot. As I'm walking in, I hear,
"You can't park there. It's my special spot."
I turn and look at the entitled jerk. "Excuse me?" I ask. "I'm on official duties and can't park there." I pointed to the decal on the door. The entitled jerk looks and says,
"You can't be a firefighter. You're a girl. Move your truck and leave."
Now I'm proud of my job. In a department of 2,000, I was one of 5 women in the whole department, and I graduated top in my class. I have a shocked looking expression on my face after he said that. I get really mad. I walk into my friend's office to get more information about his problem with this entitled jerk. As Bob explains the continuous parking violations, and I see a small notice on the fire suppression system, the sprinklers, that said the inspection was coming up. I smile as I get an idea. Cue the revenge. I get some information, leave Bob's office and get into the truck heading back to the station. I arrive and head into my chief's office. I tell him of the entitled jerk and what he said and does. The chief is a 6'6", 320 Samoan, and he sees everyone as family. And the chief's face gets bright red. I explain my idea and he gets very excited. He rushes out and calls a station meeting. I lay out my idea, and we send out the station to do a fire drill and inspection by sending the old truck and one engine to the store. My friend will call the station the next time the entitled jerk parks in the fire lane. Skip to 2 weeks later. Bob called the station stating that this entitled jerk had just parked. As I'm thanking him, I hear his fire alarm go off. I rush and change into my investigator uniform with turnout gear. Tell the chief and send the trucks out. I ride in the Quint and we arrive and I see the jerk's car right in the emergency vehicle spot. I radio to have one engine to pull right in front of the entitled jerk's car, and the truck to park right beside the driver's side door. I get out, and the engineer starts setting up the ladder, which means 4 very large and heavy support struts go down, and one crushes the front of his hood. The alarm goes off. The lineman breaks his windows as he runs a large 5-inch draft light from the bump to the stand pipes. The fire access to the sprinkler system. He does it through his front seat. I go in to find Bob hurriedly getting people out as the alarm is going off. The entitled jerk runs out of the store, sees his car, and goes ballistic. I radio the police department dispatch and request a few officers to the store as I had a male was impeding a fire operation. The dispatcher says that they will send a few officers. 3 officers show up and I ask them to follow me. They do when I call out, "Hey, leave my firefighters alone." The entitled jerk turns and sees me. He rushes up screaming that I will pay for damaging his precious baby, his car. I stopped him and told him that if he didn't leave, he will be arrested. He gets in my face and says, "You do this and I'll have your job for this." He then turns and pushes me back. The officers and I rush and tackle the entitled jerk to the ground. After they cuff him, I calmly inform the entitled jerk that he was under arrest for assault and interference with a fire investigation and that his car will be towed for parking in a fire lane. I later found out that it was crushed. Entitled jerk got 12 months probation for pushing me and interfering with a fire operation. He also got a fine of $500 for parking and the cost of tow, and he lost his nice BMW. The moral of the story is, don't park where you shouldn't, or bad things will happen. Last summer, I bought a house trailer and decided to rent it out. It needed some work, so I posted 2 months free rent for putting carpet down in the living room, hooking up the hot water heater and putting in a toilet. Got a nice couple with a newborn willing to do it. Great! No lease, month to month, no security deposit, and the rent was $450 a month. So they did the work, and I didn't ask for rent for 2 months. Everything was fine. Side note: there are a few little state laws that come into play. If you don't pay rent for 3 consecutive months, you are considered a squatter, which means the landlord doesn't have to fix the property and can actually padlock it and deny you entry. If you're on house arrest and get formally evicted, you could be violated for it. Also, you can be formally evicted if you have already moved out, so the landlord can get rent due. Also, even though there are eviction bans, if it happened before the ban, then it can still go through. Plus, a few other conditions that still allow someone to be evicted. It's up to the judge, really. Fast forward 5 months and still no rent money. Yes, they had a newborn and they were young and they didn't have a lot of money. But the husband can spend $1,500 on a new engine for his project car. They can afford to go out to eat and spend money on electronics, but no rent. So after that 3rd month, I did nothing. The weather was turning cold. I didn't put in the furnace like I promised. And if they hadn't had a newborn, I would have padlocked the house. They were bragging about their tax refund. I gave them a shot to catch up and they basically said that they knew the rights and were in a rent strike. Illegally, I might add, you will see later. COVID happened and husband got laid off, so I gave them a break. When he went back to work, I asked for back rent again, and I was told to get lost. I finally had enough. I told them they had 14 days to get out or I am doing a formal eviction. And seeing he was on house arrest, he knew what that meant. I honestly was trying to keep him from having to go back to jail and keep an eviction off of their record. I was trying to be nice and civil. So they left and I cut my losses until I checked the property. Everything they put in, they removed. Everything they got free rent for was gone. I got mad and filed for a formal eviction. It didn't go as they hoped. They said I did not provide heat, so they went on a rent strike. Only they didn't file that with the court or hold the money aside. They just thought they could stop paying rent. What they put into the trailer was less than the rent. The judge agreed with me that seeing they took everything, I was due those 2 months' rent. And the biggest, he started slamming my character, so I said, "Well, you didn't tell me you were going to be going on house arrest when you rented the property." Before then, the judge looked bored, but he perked up. He asked him if that was true, and they responded that it was, and he was ready to make his ruling. I received 15 months back rent at $450 a month and $2,000 in damages because the way they removed the stuff, they damaged a lot of things. As for him, the judge said he had no choice but to turn the eviction over to his parole officer. Fast forward to this month, his house arrest was violated and he was arrested. They actually had the nerve to ask me to speak on his behalf. I didn't. The ruling was his remaining 6 months are now being spent in jail. They have a bad eviction on the record and they owe me money. Know the law before you play the game. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.